Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
It's only sport. What? It's only sport. What's only sport? That's the name of the show. It's only sport. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan, War, 1 till 4 every afternoon on the Platform. This is the highlights of today's program, featuring Justin Marshall. So much rugby to talk. And then there's the Sam Cane thing. Mark Watson, the ATM podcast, Apologise to me. Gary Stead, Black Caps coach, has been reappointed. We won't be mentioning Sam Cane with him. And the Football Ferns finally had a win. But first, as always, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. Sam Cane is innocent. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Sam Cane to face no punishment, no ban, no sanctions or anything of the sort after the foot trip on the pitch invader at Mendoza Sunday morning. No action will be taken by Sansa, whoever Sansa are, and neither should he face any further action. Neither should this have been the big bloated issue that the mainstream clickbait media have made of it. This story to me is typical of what the once proud Fourth Estate has become. A nerdy, nasty, sensationalist, headline-making, news-faking, utter irrelevance. The truth is, the media, as we used to know it, is now a bunch of desperados dropping audience like a hot rock. My two sons, I'll use as an example, they're 22 and 20. My nephew, I'll add into this, he's 18. Neither of these three have ever sat down and watched a 6 o'clock TV news bulletin. Not one time in their lives. None of them listen to the radio, certainly not regularly at all. Maybe I'll get in the car and they've got a music radio station on, but they don't. They listen to all their own music, however they listen to it. Yet, they are all, and I would consider them, pretty well informed. How? Where do they get their news from? It is not from the mainstream media. What I'm saying is in 20 years' time, another generation, these organisations won't exist as they do now. They are desperate to be noticed. They are desperate to cling to something called relevancy, and that is why they heavily promote stories like these. A day after the All Blacks produced their best performance in probably a year, and what is the story about? It's a non-story about Sam Cane. It's mainstream media being TikTok, only no one's signing up and no one's coming back. The questions I have about this aren't for Sam Cane, they're for New Zealand rugby. Why did you hang your All Black captain out to dry? Why don't you have your back on this? Why did you make him write, or what I think really happened, is get your own PR people to write some kind of a pap apology on his Instagram page, then rewrite it a couple of hours later to make it even more sound like he was Pontius Pilate sentencing Jesus Christ himself to death on the cross? Why did you do that to him? What thinking was there behind that? What were you trying to achieve? Why do you bow to the BS from organisations like Newshub and TVNZ? Why won't you act like adults and treat your players like adults? Why did you give the guy who ran onto the pitch illegally All Black merchandise for invading the field? And when 20,000 of us invade the pitch at Mount Smart, because that's what I'm encouraging, that's, as far as I'm concerned, every single fan who's paid a ticket price at Mount Smart should be on the pitch at the end of the game, because we all deserve a $210 All Black jersey, just like the moron at Mendoza got. Why are you unable to make any decisions for yourselves? Why are you slaves to social media at New Zealand rugby? And instead of asking the question, is that behaviour unbecoming of an All Black captain, I'm asking, why don't you and won't you as employers demonstrate your support for him by having his back and backing him via your own very public actions?
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Headlines before we go to our man, Justin Marshall. Normally joins us on a Monday. Today it's a Tuesday. What do we got?
Well, I need to clear up this whole issue around Blockhouse Bay first off. For starters, Blockhouse Bay is technically part of the Auckland City Regional Council area.
You're going for technicals.
No, Council Region.
Technicals. That's a bad argument, mate. I'm just.
Well, no, that's what it is now. An isthmus, isthmus. How do you pronounce it? Isthmus is a piece of land that connects two large parts of land, right?
I do
so
understand
that bit in Auckland, Blockhouse Bay's in that chunk.
No, mate, Auckland stops at Mount Eden. This isn't even Auckland. St. Luke's, this isn't Auckland, mate.
Are you looking at a map?
This is South Auckland.
With all due respect, you're wrong. And David, I appreciate your text, but you're wrong too. Blockhouse Bay is not south. It is west.
Ring your parents up and tell them they live in South Auckland.
Oh, no, because they'll disown me. They don't want to be part of South Auckland.
What is wrong with being in South Auckland? I just don't...
Do you want to be in South Auckland?
I used to live in South Auckland. It's called Wellington.
Upper Hutt. All right, time to get to some actual news. New Zealand cricket apparently didn't consider going to the market for a head coach, rewarding Gary Stead for his strong results. Stead, whose contract was set to expire after the Cricket World Cup, has been reappointed as the New Zealand men's head coach until mid-2025. He will remain in charge of the Black Caps in all three formats after a split coaching model was considered for the role and rejected. And as we just heard on the top of our news there, he was all for it. He was keen for a split coaching role. So that's quite interesting. We've got Gary Stead on the show just after 2 o'clock. And
ask him all about that.
We'll ask him all about that. Rotorua-based shot putter Lisa Adams has won gold at the Para Athletics Association. So Rotorua-based, I don't know if she still lives there, but Rotorua native shot putter Lisa Adams has won gold at the Para Athletics World Championships in Paris. Wonderful, wonderful result. Adams successfully retained her world shot put F37 title with a championship record performance, 14.84 metres, 4 centimetres better than her 2019 performance. Good stuff, Lisa Adams. Well done. All Blacks 15 squad members Ollie Jaeger, Isaiah Walker-Leawede and Asafo Amua have left Japan and returned to New Zealand for personal reasons. They have been replaced by George Dyer, George Bell and Aidan Ross. Very interesting. I would think this is one of two things. Either they are joining All Blacks camp, but I would have thought New Zealand Rugby would have specified that, or they've misbehaved a bit and been sent home.
Three have all of a sudden got personal reasons?
Yeah.
All at once? All such big-time personal reasons. They've all got to be sent home today? Something's gone on there in New Zealand Rugby.
Something smells. Maybe it's the Japanese sushi. I'm not sure,
Whatever
but something smells.
don't believe your PR statement.
Good result for the Football Ferns last night. A 2-0 win over Vietnam and Napier in their final. It's their final warm-up. Is it their only warm-up? I think this is the only warm-up game they've played, isn't it?
Well, this is the very final one.
Well,
the very last one.
I don't think
was the only one, yes.
There we go. Shouldn't you have more than one? But the final warm-up for the Women's FIFA World Cup kicking off next Thursday for the Football Ferns. They take on Norway in that first game. Good result. Vietnam are not a good team, but still it's good to get a win and keep a clean sheet. Score a couple of goals, get a clean sheet. Good stuff. A major shock at Wimbledon in the men's singles draw with 5th seed Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's been to 2 Grand Slam finals in his young career. He's out of the tournament, losing to unknown American. I was going to say unseeded, but I think he's pretty unknown. Christopher Eubanks. Had you heard of this guy, Martin?
Yeah, he's a British boxer, isn't he?
Good one. The Yank prevailing in 5 sets. Topsy Carlos Alcaraz, Holger Rune and Daniil Medvedev all advanced to the quarterfinals, where the likes of Yannick Sinner and, of course, Novak Djokovic await. And the women's draw, pretty much business as usual. Ons Jabeur, Arina Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina all advancing, so no major shocks there. And yesterday I read out a story about Dan Hooker. He won at UFC 290 in Las Vegas, beating American Jalen Turner. He fractured his arm, a little fracture just above his wrist during the fight. Well, he's revealed on Instagram that he also has a fractured cheek. There is, around the cheekbone, he's posted a picture of the x-ray. There's just a split between one part of the bone and the other. It's just been totally almost cut in half with a saw. So Dan Hooker had 2 pretty serious fractures in there. I mean, these UFC fighters are just another breed. For the time being, Martin, that is what is making news.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
The All Blacks were excellent against Argentina. The Springboks, pretty damn impressive versus Australia. Best man to be looking at it, talking about it. Analysing it for us is Justin Marshall, 81 Test veteran of the team. On that All Black performance, can we get overexcited about that, or do we just have to wait to see how we go against South Africa first and assess it after 2 games?
Oh, look, I think they can be very, reassured by that performance. It's never easy going to Argentina and playing over there. They hadn't been to Mendoza in 32 years. Different environment. A lot of those players hadn't experienced being down that part of Argentina and playing the Pumas down there. And, you know, having been forced into having to make a few decisions through injuries and suspensions and unavailability, the side that was put out there went out and did a demolition job on a very good on-paper side that Argentina put out. So I think, yeah, absolutely, there's still a true test coming at the weekend against what's going to be a very good South African side, but that was a good Argentinian side, and they were made to look very ordinary.
Can we also look at that Australia versus South Africa game and put that same caveat on it, going, well, we don't really know how good South Africa are because Australia were particularly poor?
To a degree, yeah, but again, they had, I guess, the odds against them. You know, I did believe that was absolutely the type of recipe that Eddie Jones needed with his coaching strategy. The fact that the Springboks had sent some of their key players to New Zealand, it was the perfect storm and an opportunity for him, you know, to get his players wound up. They don't respect us. They're looking a week ahead and produce a performance. And I don't know whether it was, as you mentioned, Australia just not coming up to the level they needed to, or equally South Africa just being too good and showing that they've got true squad depth, because players that stepped in, you know, like Esterhuizen in the midfield, Willemse, you know, they are a complete outfit and they look very, very good.
81 Test veteran of the All Blacks, and he's working for Sky, not there in Argentina. I know that you can't comment too much about that, mate, because they are paying your wages, but I kind of feel that something gets lost when the commentary team isn't actually there. And you know, I'm one of those rare fans who I like hearing from the players. I like hearing the past players talk to those guys, and I just like hearing the atmosphere that you actually bring when you're physically present, because I don't know. I mean, I could tell as soon as I switched on the telly that you guys went there. It was obvious to me.
Yeah, well, obviously you haven't got the stadium environment, have you? And that is a massive point of difference. You don't feel the energy of the stadium. You don't see what's unfolding in front of you because you're just looking at a TV screen. So it is different, and those decisions are made for all types of various reasons. But you know, at the end of the day, I think when you have to do your job, you've got to go out and do it with what you're confronted with the best of your capabilities.
There you go.
So that's the way it is. But yeah, look, I certainly feel that you know, when you look at that performance in Mendoza and you saw how feverish it looked the crowd were at the start, I must admit I was thinking, this is going to be a tough old afternoon for the All Blacks. But it was far from it, wasn't it? It was. You know, from the opening exchanges, apart from Argentina not getting that charge down try, that could have turned the game, but it didn't. The All Blacks were always in control of that match.
What did you like particularly? I made a lot of notes. I was just wanting to run them by. First and foremost, I thought, you know, the guys that we hadn't seen play particularly well during Super Rugby, guys like Rieko Ioane, guys like Beauden Barrett, even Aaron Smith, played their best games of the season. And I looked at Aaron and I thought he was back slinging those 25, 30-metre passes, which cut out the midfield, which is the key point of difference, giving you a half a second or a second extra room space. I mean, that is how the All Blacks play our best rugby, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But what is going to be interesting is how the All Blacks adapt. Now, absolutely, their execution at the weekend was really good. I certainly noticed that they weren't going as often for the out-the-back play. They were just tipping on to the front runners rather than looking for more depth. At times, yeah, they showed variation where they did that. So there was an adjustment there, and that certainly was evident. And the width that Aaron Smith was giving those four runners was really good. But South Africa defend differently. They're very unique in the way that they defend, and they do have this ability to really narrow the field on you and make you go into areas where they want you to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how, with a different defensive mindset, the All Blacks adjust their game plan and still are able to generate as quick a ball as what they did at the weekend. Because to me, that was the key. The ruck speed ball was so fast that it had the Argentinians had defenders on their heels, not on their toes. So the key is, when South Africa defend the way they do, get them on their heels, on the back foot. You do not want them coming forward to you all day, because they can really suffocate you and narrow the field and shut you down.
So I'll just end with this. I tell you what's been disappointing though. Here, the All Blacks play as well as they've played, and as you say, we've had some other great sporting results over the weekend. And yet the mainstream media decide to make a huge baloney about what Sam Cane did. Now, whether or not he should or shouldn't, I hate these questions about whether it's unbecoming of an All Black captain. Justin, somebody's on the bloody field. You don't know who that person is. They're running around. They could be anyone. He threw a leg out there. He tripped. To then make the guy write these apologies or write them on his behalf, I must admit, I'm really disappointed in New Zealand rugby. I thought that they would have backed their man in this case and said, and somebody had actually gone in and done all of that for him rather than, I feel like he's been left to hang out to dry, and it's just not a good look.
Well, it's just not a good look. It looked untidy, but ultimately, that person should not be on the field. And the repercussions of being on the field in an international and the threat to the current players in the current climate, you can understand getting spooked by something like that. Like I was on the field when the player came on in South Africa. I was right there, actually, and saw Norm Maxwell drill him into the ground. And Richie McCaw grapple him as well. But that's because they're in our space. They're in your area. And there's not a place for that. Fans are fans. They come along, they get entertained, and they're there to watch and enjoy you entertaining them. Their place is not on the field. And that guy should never have been on the field. Now, look, whether Sam Cane should or shouldn't have done what he did, again, when you get somebody out of your peripheral and it's something that you feel is a threat, then you just try to, dislodge that threat. And yeah, I think it's been massively blown out of proportion. I think a lot of the blame has to go on security and the person that was able to get onto the field, and secondly, his mindset to get on there. You're going to suffer some repercussions. Repercussions. But geez, we've seen plenty of times people really well hurt by security staff. So yeah, look, I get it in terms of what it looks like, but also we've got to protect our players. Stay off the bloody field and this won't be an issue.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
He's one of the topics, the brand new Black Caps coach. As well as that, we'll celebrate with Greg Popovich, who's just inked an $80 million 5-year deal as a 74-year-old to stay on with San Antonio. The Football Ferns last night, give me a score out of 10 for them. No sanctions or punishment for Sam Cane. Of course, this was never going to happen. I just think there would have been an absolute uproar if he had faced anything other than the mainstream media clickbait load of bollocks that he has for doing what any player should do on the field. When somebody they don't know has jumped the fence and is running towards them, take them out. That's the point. Take them out. Well, it should be the job of security, but that big fat guy running after the kid, and was he a kid? He's a teenager. He knows what he's doing. Mendoza. Hardly earning his pay at the time, was he? Megan Rapinoe. Is it Rapinoe?
Rapinoe, I think. She's not Māori.
All right, just giving her, she's now in New Zealand, so I was giving her some cultural appreciation there. The United States soccer superstar wants trans athletes on her team. Are you thinking about this, Megan? Are you actually really seriously thinking about what this might mean? The All Whites are going to play the Socceroos in October. Damn good. We'll kick it off with the Football Ferns. So last night, mate, 2-0 against Vietnam. Give me a score out of 10. Vietnam, not the greatest opposition, but again, you only plays who you play. And I will look on the bright side when it comes to this. 2 goals, 2 in the back of the onion. I thought that the passing was a lot more crisp. We put them away. We never looked in danger. That was a team. It was probably more of a training run than an actual match, but the Football Ferns needed that.
Yep. I truthfully didn't watch anything bar the highlights. Yeah, look, in terms of their performance, I'd say a steady 6.5, 7.
Okay, that's just off match reports and highlights, yeah. I only watched 50 minutes, mate.
Yeah,
but what
I can't really base it off a lot, but
Look, what I saw in the previous 7 games this year was awful.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
and it was a vast improvement on that.
As I said earlier, clean sheet, couple of goals. There's a positive in that in itself. I, like you, have not rated this team at all for a long time.
Well, that's because they don't deserve to be rated, because their results have been rubbish, mate.
And so it's hard to get excited at all about that, bar the fact that it gives them a taste of winning. So at least from, as you say, match reports and from highlights, they were the far better side. Vietnam were awful, though.
Vietnam were awful.
So I think a 6.5, 7 is
okay. Look, and that's fair, and I think that the team will take that. We should all take that, because going into Norway is a hell of a way to start the World Cup Thursday week, people. This is a good side that we're going to be playing. Gary Stead, 2 years confirmed as the brand new Black Caps coach, and there was no one else interviewed for the position. How cool is that? When you go for a job and it's just you, and you've already got the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does he get more money? I'm going to ask him that.
I guess
Do you get more time off?
He probably would.
Do you get more support staff?
Well, he was a real pusher, if that makes sense, of there being another coach by the sounds, but that he actually wanted to maybe take on just the test duties or test and ODI duties, or maybe he only wanted the white ball duties, and another coach to come in and take over one of the other teams at least. So I think I saw something in an article. I could be misquoting this article, and apologies if I have, that the discussions between he and New Zealand cricket have actually been going on for about 8 or 9 months.
Okay, we'll ask him about that.
So if he's the only guy that's been interviewed, why did it take so blooming long? But I mean, it's great to see. He's done a great job. I really don't know what a coach does in cricket. I don't know the sport well enough. Here we go. New Zealand cricket instead have been in conversations around his coaching future for the past 8 to 9 months and whether he wanted to continue as head coach. But he's done a great job. He's done a very good job in the role. We've had this, I think, it's fair to say, been a golden generation for New Zealand cricket, and he's been at the forefront of it.
Look, and we spoke with Shane Jurgensen last week. He's a really easygoing dude to deal with. This Gary. Look forward to catching up with him in a few minutes. Just on that, Greg Popovich. I know he's not. Gary's not 74 years old like Pop. A 5-year, $80 million deal to stay on as San Antonio coach. What other sports in the world reward a coach of that age? I was thinking the only one I can think of is the odd football manager, round ball, but also your Wayne Bennett's or your Bellamy's or your Sheens in the NRL. There's all sports in the world that have coaches of that age. And you're not talking about, chop liver. You're talking about the NBA here with the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, and I'm just checking what is 74. Yeah, so and he's getting 80 million, which is a ridiculous number. I've never known coaches. I mean, Monty Williams signed a deal a few months ago to become the new Detroit Pistons coach. It was about 100 million over 5 or 6 years, which that in itself was ridiculous. But he's one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the game. My thing with coaches is
you talking ever or right now?
Both, absolutely.
Well, who are the others?
Right now or ever?
Ever.
Phil Jackson's number 1. He's got 11 rings.
Well, what about Red?
Well, I'm getting to it. Red Auerbach would be another. Pat Riley would be 1. Greg Popovich. Those would be the 4, I would think. Because then I think there's a draw. Steve Kerr's got to be in that conversation.
Has to be.
But apart from those 5, Chuck Daly was good. Red or Fred? Red? Holzman? Was it Fred or Red? One of the 2. Last name was Holzman. He was a very good coach. And right now he's still one of the best. Because I don't think as a coach you lose your smarts and your ability to coach, at least from an analytical standpoint, players and teams. Well,
you're giving me a lot of questions to ask Gary now. I'm looking forward to this because I'm going to ask him all about it this stuff. Megan Rapinoe.
She's not Māori.
Look, I mean, I just don't want. I don't want to upset anyone here in case that they have some fun and do a haka in their training session and News Hub decide.
Don't do that.
To declare war on the United States.
Yeah, well, the Netherlands have now done that again. As well as Spain.
She wants trans athletes on her team. Megan, retract the statement. You don't actually understand what the hell you're saying.
Well, no, she's saying she wants it on her team. She didn't say she wants to play against teams with men on them, with transgender women on them, did she?
So a whole lot of guys running around who think that they're women and you want to play against them or play with them.
Any woman's team want a transgender player on their team because it would make you better, wouldn't it?
Stupid. Oh, look, having said that, my attitude has always been that if every single woman who is competing in the competition is happy about a transgender athlete competing, then that's okay.
Well, no, that's not what she's saying.
No, she wants them in her team.
She's saying she wants them in her team. She didn't say I'd happily play against them. She said, if there was one in the US women's team, absolutely, I'm stoked. Well, of course you are.
Remember, and I've got to just remind people, look, when I was, following the kids around playing football, that Charlie, my eldest, his under-13 Western Springs team played the Football Ferns consecutive weeks on the North Shore, beat them both times. Okay, they were under-13 boys. Megan, be careful what you wish for. Finally, the All Whites are going to be playing the Socceroos in October. I like this. They're playing for the Ashes Cup.
Yeah, I don't like how they've called it the Ashes.
I don't know that because
we're not part of the Ashes.
No, the Ashes.
Call it the Bledisloe.
That will do. Yeah. But at least let's get an annual fixture going. Good on you, New Zealand football. I don't know whose idea this was, but it is a damn good idea. The brand new Black Caps coach is the Black Caps coach. There were no other applicants. There were no other interviewees. Congratulations to Gary Stead, who stays in charge to 2025. I love the fact that they weren't interviewing anyone else. That's a reasonably good interview, an easy interview, isn't it?
It's nice, I guess, to get the tick of approval from a number of people around it. But look, I'm very honoured and privileged to be in the position that I'm in. So looking forward to what's ahead.
Gary, we're reading that between 8 and 9 months these discussions have been going on. Why have they taken so long?
I guess just being away at different times of the year. I think for me it's I wanted New Zealand cricket to be sure that this was the right way, and that I guess we've muted in the past around the split coaching model, but after a lot of discussion around it, they decided this is the best way to go, and it doesn't stop me or us as a team bringing in different voices at different times, and that's something we'll certainly still continue to explore.
Were you absolutely sure about this? Because, unless I'm making it up in my own mind, I think talking to you over recent years that you didn't know whether or not you wanted to continue or whether the workload was getting too much for you, all of that stuff?
Look, I mean, it's something that, I'm sure the first thing I needed to do was make sure that I had the energy and the desire to keep doing it. And once we ticked that box and said, yep, we do, then it was working out what that looked like for me as well. So, as I said, I'm more than willing, and I've said this to New Zealand cricket, that if they find options that they want to keep exploring, that let's do it together. And if there are voices out there of people and other voices that they think will be beneficial to the side, then I'm all for that as well.
It's a very humble thing to say and a very humble way of looking at it as well. So what you're actually saying, say, for example, they said, hey, look, Stephen Fleming wants to come on board for the T20s or something, or we're going to add or we'd like to add another voice. Did they come to you and talk about that, or do they just do it and you're just going to agree with it?
No, it'll be a discussion point. But again, I mean, Stephen Fleming's been a great thinker. He's obviously a great mind in the T20 game, and he's had a short stint with us back a while ago before a World Cup. So they're the types of options that I think we will keep exploring, because they do add that, I guess, difference to the normal voices that you hear around the group.
Mike Hesson, it was just, when he left the job, I remember him saying you spend so much time away from home and it is quite disruptive and it's very hard on family life and things like that. And I'm obviously not prying into yours at all, but just how much time do you spend away, or how much time do you get at home?
Look, I mean, I've been through the last few years and sort of looked at it, and I think there've been a little bit of circumstances where we've had a lot of COVID catch-ups and things, but you're talking anywhere from sort of 240 to 250 days of the year that you're away on tour. And
wow.
You're right, that's tough, and when you're on tour, it's not like there's a lot of days off either. It's generally like noses down and into the games or into training, and but I mean, we understand, I think, as a group, it's a privilege to do what we do, and whilst that's some of the sacrifices that you don't always see. It's not always you, it's the families that do suffer for that as well.
Gary Stead, Black Caps coach, with us. He has been reappointed for another couple of years. Having had so much success, did that make your decision easier, the fact that it has been bloody good to be in that position for the last few years?
Didn't change, I guess, or it wasn't a factor for me. I think the thing I love about this group is they're willing to work hard together. They're willing to try and find ways to keep improving, and we've never claimed to be the best players or the best team in the world, but if we can, I guess, get everyone moving in the same direction and operating at somewhere near their peak, then we know that we can beat anyone on any given day. So that's the exciting bit about working with it. We are ultimately we're just Kiwis from the bottom of the world out there trying our best, and that's an attitude that I think can take you a long way.
How much better are you at your job today than you were when you first started?
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe that's a question for someone else. Maybe Marty. I think it's certainly different roles when you consider the major association coaching and you're very, very hands-on and sort of a master of having to do everything in those roles. Whereas I think in this role, the New Zealand role, there's certainly it's a lot more around man management and program management and managing certainly the well-being of people, but also the workloads of people as well. And the T20 leagues around the world have been, I guess, a challenge at times to try and find the right balance. And I think that as the cricketing landscape keeps changing, we're still trying to be flexible and nimble in our thinking around that as well.
What are the best bits of the job, Gary? Winning, I suppose.
Seeing the team perform, like what they're capable of, and I think in many respects, you look at some of the world titles and World Cups that we've been to, they're very, very special moments, and when you feel like you're a small part of I guess, creating some history for our country as well, then they're really fun times to be part of.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. The ATM, Apologise to Me, Mark Watson podcast, every Tuesday on the platform. Let's move on to the Sam Cane thing. And I'm so glad you've been out of the country, because you would have gone apoplectic at this. This is a absolute classic example of a losing mainstream media who are just dropping audience like it's a hot rock, trying desperately to cling to a clickbait way of what used to be called journalism, but these days producing news content. The rest of the world, the rest of the country sitting there going, what on earth did he do wrong apart from try and get somebody who's committing a crime off the pitch? And here he is with New Zealand Rugby making him right, or writing on his behalf, Instagram posts, some kind of faux apology. They're handing out free All Black gear to this guy and trying to sort of drag the All Black captain's name through the mud as though he's actually done something wrong here. I mean, this is the whole, reverse idiocy that we are facing in the world today, that, you can speed off from the cops. The cops aren't allowed to chase you. And if something happens, somehow it's their fault because you're doing a runner. I mean, for God's sake, you're on the pitch. That's illegal for a start. What happens to you is little consequence. Get off the goddamn pitch.
Yeah, preaching inverted, Martin. Absolutely. Just clickbait crap. We've just beaten the Argentinians, one of the best performances under the Ian Foster reign. And what's the story? Well, let's make it clickbait. Let's make it about Sam Cane tripping up a pitch invader. And, as you said, Martin, who really damn well cares? A couple of weeks ago, we had Johnny Bairstow lifting up a protester, or was it at Lords or Headingley, and walking him off the field, didn't we? I remember, what was it, back in the 1990s or the early 2000s, when that South African fan ran on and against the All Black South Africa, and I think someone absolutely skittled him as well.
Yeah, Richie McCord tackled him,
whacking streakers across the bum, and it was all just part of iconic sort of days in one-day cricket. I'm like you. I mean, if this was the captain of the White Ferns, if this was the captain of the Football Ferns in football, do you think that they would get the same coverage? Why don't they spend more time critiquing that Football Ferns team in the build-up to that game against Vietnam? Why don't they actually do some proper journalism? To me, it's not even a story, Martin.
I'm the Minister of Common Sense.
Next!
That means I get to decide what the hell we talk about.
Next!
I also get to decide what answers are expected to the questions, not what questions are expected before they get answered.
Next!
We need to talk.
We need to talk.
I just said that.
We need to talk.
We need to talk about why 3 players from the, I'm not going to say All Blacks 15, I'm going to say the New Zealand 15 tour of Japan. They've played one game. They're still to play Japan. These guys are amongst the best players we've sent over there, including Amur and including Ollie Jaeger. Why have these 3 players suddenly been sent home? Personal reasons. Now, this came out in a social media post from New Zealand Rugby. No statement, no update, no nothing. Jamie Wall has been questioning this on Twitter. No one else has. A couple of comments that have come in. Japan has strict behavioural standards and cultural etiquette. Slights can be taken very seriously. Swift action in response to a slight is expected, and it restores face. Now, one of the things I do know about Japan, I've spent a fair bit of time around Japan because the old man, rest in peace, was a 3rd Dan black belt, and he used to go up there and he used to go training a hell of a lot. And so we were kind of not immersed in Japanese culture, but we kind of grew up around a lot of Japanese stuff. We had several guys come and stay with us as kids, all of that kind of thing. And one of the big things I have understood always about the Japanese is the saving face thing. I don't agree with it. I just think it's a bit weird and it's a bit unnecessary at times. But you saw it. I mean, if you actually want to watch a good program or a good doco, in 2011 that the tsunami happened? Was that the big tsunami?
Yeah, 2011. Yep. Okay,
Fukushima, and just watch the docos around there about, what was going on, what wasn't being said, what wasn't actually being released to the public, the nuclear fallout from those blown reactors, all that kind of stuff. And it was all about saving face. It was all about everyone, which, I suppose a good literal English translation is covering your butt, But anyway, this is just weird. Everything about it is weird. Personal reasons? Personal reasons are what, Lachlan? What do personal reasons say to you? Personal reasons say to me that something dramatic has happened at home with a close family member. It could be a child, it could be a spouse, it could be somebody associated with you. And it's dramatic to the point of something untoward has happened, either an accident, somebody's fallen sick,
Maybe a death in the family.
Somebody desperately needs you.
Maybe marital issues, not sure.
Something like that, whatever it is.
Something so extreme that you can't stay there and play
That's
rugby.
it. Now, let's just paint the picture here. All of these players are there for at least a couple of weeks, so their closest, nearest and dearest know that they're off working. So it's not like she's just rung up and said, I can't stand you being away from home. The kids are driving me crazy. You must come home. It's not that.
No.
Okay? So, and we've got to be careful how we treat here, because if it is that something awful has happened, it could have been a car crash, it could have been anything, okay? But for it to happen to 3 players at exactly the same time, within 24 hours of playing a game and winning, you've got to be suspicious, and you've got to have a right to be suspicious about this, because there's just been so many incidents over the years involving players of rugby and rugby league in particular, but not just them, but especially down here in New Zealand, where guys have done things that they shouldn't have done off the field, and therefore there are consequences to those actions. I'm not saying that that's the case here, but I can't just believe the statement from New Zealand Rugby that it's personal reasons. It just doesn't, the jigsaw bits aren't fitting together here. We need a little bit more information. And as I say, you've got to tread carefully, because if you dip your finger or your toe into this pool, and you could get bitten, because it could be.
Now, we've just had a text in, and this is something I saw on Facebook literally a matter of seconds ago. There's Asafa Mua is playing for Wellington in a Ranfurly Shield game, which, by the sounds of it, is tomorrow.
Well,
so,
okay.
if it's a serious family thing, for example...
Would he be playing?
No, you'd think not. Would he be allowed to then... if that's the case, because if you're leaving on personal reasons, personal grounds... There's something back home that is so extreme that's stopping you from playing rugby over there. If you then decide to suit
representing your country.
Representing your country. If you decide to then suit up for a team back home, well, the All Blacks 15 and New Zealand Rugby as a whole are going to be going, well, hold up, you've just ditched us to go...
What?
What are you doing? You can't do that.
I mean, that
wouldn't go down well with
this also puts in jeopardy all of these players' selections for future national teams. Because if you can just up like that after a game and whip home because something has happened that's more important than playing... It's got to be something really serious. Or if you've been sent home for an indiscretion. Now, that indiscretion could be something as light as, we told you not to go out on the booze afterwards, and all three of you guys arrived back after midnight. The curfew was there for a reason. The protocols are there for a reason. You know what the consequence of is doing that. You're on the plane home. If that's the case, would you be allowed to then turn out for Wellington the next day?
Actually, that's a good point, because if it is something that's related to your behaviour over there, you wouldn't
know.
You wouldn't.
See, that's the confusing thing as well.
So this is actually less so being. It's just straight up confusing now.
It is just absolutely, utterly batshit bonkers, is what it is. Football Ferns finally got a win after almost a year. Finally got a goal after 7 scoreless matches. Katie Duncan, 125 games, 4 World Cups and 2 Olympic Games for our national women's team, joins us. I watched for about 50 minutes last night. The 2 things I noticed was the passing was a lot crisper, and we just seemed to be, I liked the passing and the movement. Those were the 2 things that I actually wrote down.
Yep, I agree with that. I thought they were strong, particularly in the wide areas. Movement was really good. Passing was a lot better, especially in the attacking third, which we haven't seen a lot in the previous performances. So that was some big improvements for the girls.
Katie, that team, that 11 that started, how close is that going to be to the first 11 to play Norway?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I think there might be, a couple of tweaks, if any. It certainly was a good performance by a lot of the girls. So it's hard to know what she's going to do, if she's going to change it up at all. There were a few really key performances, I think, for people kind of putting their hand up to start. So it's a tough decision for her, I reckon.
Well, give us those names. Who did you think played well?
Oh, I saw India Paige Riley did really well, and Hand on so the 2 wingers, they both did really well. It was so good to see Rhea back in the central defending midfield there. And also Stoddard, to see those 2 back in. And when Slee came on, she made an instant impact, in my opinion. Across the board, really, I thought they were all pretty solid performances from everyone. So it'd be hard to decide who's going to start for that first game with Norway.
Yeah, Katie Duncan is with us, former Football Fern. We won 2-0 last night against Vietnam. I mean, you've been involved in this in the build-up to World Cups and things like that. The last week, what does that involve? Does that involve a lot of in-house games?
Just a few quiet games. Just some extra trainings and just keeping yourself sharp and just taking it day by day. You don't want to get too kind of ahead of yourself. Just looking to kind of build on what you've already built on for the last couple of months. Well, for the last few years, but the crunch time in the last few months. So just looking to build onto it, really.
Vietnam weren't a great side, and I say that, I don't mean to be mean to them, but they didn't. I mean, I'm trying to figure out the gap between when a side's ranked 6 or 7 places lower than us. It's not kind of like all of a sudden you think, if they're 2 behind us, they must be as close to us as that, but they're not, are they?
No, I mean, I thought they were quite average in terms of standing off quite a bit, and they didn't really have any chances. They weren't the best team, but I mean, look, the girls still have to score goals and they still have to win the game. So that's what they did, and I think good on them for doing it.
What is the gap towards the better teams? Because Norway, when we play them, are one of the best teams in women's football in the world. How much better are they?
Yeah, I reckon the better teams, I would say, are more clinical with their kind of possession and with their shots and set plays and things. And I think if that was one thing that we could improve on, like we had a lot of shots, and so to be more clinical, put more of the goals away in the first place, but also to capitalise on, say, set pieces. We had a lot of corners too, and to Vietnam. We're not the tallest team, but Vietnam certainly weren't either. So to only score one a set play off a corner, one goal from the corner, you'd hope that would be a little bit more. The stats would be a little bit more. But I guess some of the other teams, I guess more. I would say, experience in playing. They play like in the top kind of club levels. Across the world, and that kind of experience does also add to things. Those top teams, yeah.
What is it funny? What are the key differences? You played in a couple of World Cups. I mean, you do all the build-up, you do all of that, but when you actually get to the tournament, what is the biggest challenge or the hardest thing that you face?
Oh, I don't tend to. Yeah, I guess. For me personally, I just took it as another game. I didn't try to kind of, if you build it up too much, or if you overthink it, then your football goes out the window. You see, so. But I guess challenges. Just the challenge in terms of you're wanting to play your best game and with your team, right? And it's what I think with the Football Ferns. If they all have a blinder game on the same kind of day together, then anything is possible for the Ferns, in my opinion. So it's just trying to make it all happen, make it all connect on the same on that day, on the D-Day, really.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show 1 till 4 Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.